Hello friends, thank you for watching this video. I am Mohamad and today we'll be going on a journey to explore Azure. On this journey we aim to understand the different features, services, functionality and infrastructure that Azure provides. So what are we going to be covering today? First we're going to be discussing what's the cloud and how the cloud is our future, and then we're going to be delving deep into Azure, its services, global infrastructure, and then we're going to be discussing part of the global infrastructure, what are data centers, Azure geographies, regions, and availability zone. By the end, we're gonna go through Azure's portal and we're gonna do a small demo on that. As always, please comment your questions, clarification, and suggestions in the comments down below. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like this video. It will really help the channel. Now, what's the cloud? Almost everything we do is powered by the cloud. From using our favorite social media apps like TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc., or our favorite streaming services like Netflix, Disney, HBO, and so on. Even our shopping applications like Amazon are now all powered by the cloud. But what's the cloud? And how are we using it? And why is everyone rushing to get on the cloud? The cloud in simple terms is a collection of computers called servers scattered all around the world. The software and the hardware of these servers makes up the cloud. There are many cloud providers, but the main ones are Microsoft Azure, AWS, which stands for Amazon Web Services, and Google Cloud. Now let's discuss how cloud is the future. First, by cost saving. Businesses are constantly looking to find ways for IT investment to boost productivity, increase business effectiveness, and enable innovation, without the need for capital investment. With the cloud, organizations can save money on storage, servers, management services, automation, and different infrastructures as well, as these services can be moved direct to the cloud with minimum cost and making their operation more efficient and more cost effective. As a lot of the things that they will usually need to do manually, the cloud can automatically provide to them out of the box. Second point is security. Cloud security consists of different sets of policies, control, procedures, and technologies that work together to protect the cloud-based system and data and its infrastructure. These security measures are configured to protect the cloud data, support regulatory compliance, and protect customers' privacy. Our third point is saves time. In a competitive market, time is as important as money. Cloud computing has many advantages. Perhaps the most beneficial advantages are ease of use and scalability. With this ease of use, cloud services, and scalability of different services that we have there, organizations can save time on and reinvest their core business. Our fourth point is product innovation. Cloud computing is still growing, and we have not yet leveraged all of the benefits of the cloud. Therefore, there is a lot of considerable room for improvement in this technology. And where there's room for improvement, innovation is never far behind. Our fifth point is reliability. Cloud significantly reduces downtimes in case of server malfunctions, both for websites and enterprise networks, and that offers the ability to manage peak loads with much more efficiently. 6 is flexibility. The future always holds expansion possibility. With the flexibility that cloud service offers, one can always scale up or scale down cloud services based on their business demands. 7 is performance enhancer. With the cloud services, updates can be automated, maintenance and service management can be done with ease anywhere in the cloud, which provide much more flexibility and provide way more performance to manage our networks from anywhere. So, what is Azure Cloud? Azure is one of the fastest growing and second cloud computing platform in the market. Azure in simple terms is an online portal in which we can access and manage resources and services. So, some facts about Azure. So Azure was launched on February 1st, 2010, and it's significantly later than AWS. It's free to start with and support pay-as-you-go model. 95% of the Fortune 500 companies are on Azure. Majority of the biggest companies in the world trust Azure with their businesses and recommends it. Azure supports multiple variety of programming languages like C#, Java, PHP, Node.js, etc., and support a lot of the open source platform that exists. Azure has $1 billion investment yearly in security as well as in different upgrades of its services and infrastructure. 90+ compliance offerings, streamline compliance with most of the comprehensive compliance coverage of any cloud provider. So what are Azure services? They have 22 categories. and more than 220 services are available across these categories, and the new services are being added all the time. So from within these categories, we can see that we have databases, DevOps, identity, integration, storage, security, so on and so forth. And under these, for example, if we take web, we have, for example, web hosting, we have web management. Under storage, for example, we can have blob storage, queues, we can have NoSQL databases. For example, under integration, we can have like CI/CD pipeline. Under DevOps, we can have CI/CD pipelines. Under container, we can manage our own containers. Under blockchain, for example, we can have our own instance of Corda blockchain, or we can have instances of Quorum blockchains. So there's a lot of services that we can utilize, and they are all grouped under these different categories. So what is Azure Global Infrastructure? It is a set of data centers deployed within a latency-defined parameters and connected through a dedicated regional low-latency network. With more global region than any other cloud provider, Azure gives its customer the flexibility to deploy application where they need to. Azure Global Infrastructure is formed of different layers, perfectly structured to give the best possible outcome for its customers. So these layers consist of first data center, which we're gonna be exploring all of these layers in more details, but for now we're just gonna be going through them. So the first layer is gonna be data centers, then it's gonna be region and region pairs, then it's gonna be availability zones, and then we're gonna go into geographies. So what are data centers? When we provision a resource from Azure, like for example virtual machine, Azure SQL DB, or for example any web application, a web app, basically any resources that we need from the services that Azure provides, these resources will require an actual servers to do the work and to create whatever we need. A data center is simply a building that contains hundreds to thousands of physical servers which are connected to the Azure network. This building has also its own power supply and its own cooling, so it's not reliant on any external services. These data centers are located across the globe. There are more than 200 data centers located across the globe, and their exact location are not known due to security reasoning. These data centers consume a lot of resources and energy to stay online, and Microsoft has been working on making them as green as possible and carbon free. So in essence, data centers are just buildings that contains a lot of servers, and these servers are connected to the Azure network, and these buildings are self-sufficient, so they don't really need any external system to get power or to get cooling. It's a self-contained unit with all of its different configuration and different utilities that it needs to run. So the first layer that we covered is data center. Now we're gonna go exploring geographies, and then from that point we're gonna be discovering the different layers of Azure. So what are Azure geographies? Azure geography is a discrete market, typically containing at least one or more region. We're gonna be discussing what's a region later on, that preserve data residency and compliance boundaries. So for example, as we can see here from this picture, we can see that there is a lot of blue dots around the globe, and these blue dots without anything inside of them are called regions, and those regions, as we can see, are all available into different countries. So Azure geographies are basically countries or continents, and these countries or continents are separated in order for all of these Azure data centers to be compliant with data residency and data boundaries. So for example, if we're having a lot of financial data, or we're having, for example, some health data, based on that country's regulation, these data are not allowed to leave its boundary. For this reason, we have something called Azure geographies, and Azure geographies means like we have data centers and they are bound to these countries and this for these services, for example. So if I have, for example, my application contain any financial data, these financial data have to stay within the boundaries of this country, and they are not allowed to leave or be stored anywhere outside that country. And for this reason, it's very good for us to understand that Azure geographies are bound by countries. In a certain aspect, for example, within the EU, it's not actually limited by a country, it's limited by a continent. So, for example, Within the EU, we have, for example, a data center EU1 or EU2, and these are located anywhere within that continent. It's not actually bounded by a single country within the EU. It's actually limited by the actual EU continent. So geographies, for this reason, geography was not actually called countries, because it actually can be limited within a continent as well. Most geography responds to countries, and there are certain geographies like Europe, Africa, which, as we said, refers to continents. So why do we care about geography? As we said before, it could be for regulated data like financial services, healthcare, credit, government data, so on and so forth. And in order for Microsoft to comply with all of these different regulations, they need to separate these data centers based on geography, so they will be able to have all of the right compliance for all of these different services. One more note to add here, that not all Azure products and other services are available across geographies. So there might be some Azure services which are, for example, available in the US, which is not might be available, for example, in the EU. Or, for example, their services might be available in South Africa, which is not available in Australia, for example. So that's geography in a nutshell. So our next point is we're going to be discussing regions. So as we have said before, Azure geographies can consist of countries or continents. So within an Azure geographies, we have something called Azure Regions. Simply put, Azure Region is a set of data centers, and these data centers are connected through a dedicated low latency network. A region could be formed of one or multiple data centers. We can utilize a cross-region resiliency to make our application resilient to being down, and for us to provide the best services. So as we said before, that geographies are countries or continents, and within those countries we have, for example, different regions within those countries. So let's take a look at this example. So in the UK, for example, is considered a Azure geography, and inside the UK we have two regions. We have something called the UK West region, and we have something called the UK South region. And within those two regions, every one of them contain one or multiple data centers. So for example, in the UK South we can have 3 data centers, and the UK West we can have 4 data centers, for example. And these are all fall under the same geography, which is going to be the UK. So Azure Regions is very important, as every time we create an Azure resource, we need to specify the region that it supports, because as we said before, not all services are available in all of the regions and all of the geographies. So we need to make sure that when we create a service, we need to specify the right geography and the right region that it belongs to. Azure region might be paired with other Azure regions, and Azure region might also have availability zone. We're going to be discussing what are these availability zones, but just so we can understand, for example, UK South region actually can be paired with UK West region. So if there's anything that's that happened with the UK South data center or UK South region, all of the operation is automatically migrated to the UK West until the UK South is back operation again. So they are paired together. It's like a failover switch. In case something goes wrong, the other one will be able to pick up the work. So now let's talk about Azure Region Resiliency. But what does actual resiliency mean? It is the ability of a software to react to a problem in one of its more components and still provide the best services for its users. So in case there is a problem, the end user should not really know about it. We can get this resiliency when we deploy our application to at least 2 different regions. So as we can see here from this picture, let's say I have my API which is running smoothly, and for example something went wrong in our UK South data center, and our application is running currently in our UK South data center. In order for us to provide the best service to our customers and to make sure that our customers are not impacted by the issues that the data centers are currently, or the region that the UK South is currently facing, what we need to do is we need to deploy our application into a different region. And this region, for example, can be in a completely different geography. Like, for example, if our application in the UK, we can deploy it in the US, or we can deploy it in the EU, or we can deploy it in South Africa, Australia, Asia, anywhere we want, as long as it's not in the same geography as the first one. And once we deploy that application to a different geography, we need to choose a region within that geography, and we need to deploy it there. But we need to make sure that the region we are choosing has actually support for the same services that we want. And then on top of that, we need to utilize something called Azure Traffic Manager. So basically the main functionality of an Azure Traffic Manager is to actually detect if all of these regions are healthy. So for example, it will detect that the UK region is healthy or not, and if it's healthy, it will route the traffic there. But in case something goes wrong and it's not healthy, it will automatically route the traffic to the second region, so the users will not feel that there is any issue or any delays or the service is down. So the next point we're going to be discussing is the Azure Availability Zone. What is Azure Availability Zone? An Azure Availability Zone is a highly available offering that protects your application and data from data centers failures. An availability zone are unique physical location within an Azure region. So as we said, first we have the geography, which is basically the country or a continent. Then we have the region, which is basically an area within that country or a continent. And then within those region, we have something called the availability zone. And the availability zone are basically data centers or physical locations, or they could be part of data centers that have their own independent power, cooling, and networking. To ensure resiliency, there are minimum 3 separate zones enabled. So for example, let's say there's an availability zone in the UK South. So inside the UK South region, let's say there's 3 data centers. On top of these 3 data centers, there should be 3 availability zones available. And these availability zones, as we said, they have their own power, cooling, and networking, so they are not reliant on the main data centers. And those physical separation of the availability zone within the region protect the application and the data from the data center's failures. So let's say the UK South data center had any failure, the availability zones within those data centers will not actually fail because they will actually have their own power and cooling and networking, as we have said before. And these zones are redundant services and replicate the application and the data across this availability zone to protect from single point of failure. So let's say because we said there is a 3-point availability zones or 3 duplication point. So in case one of these availability zones, the application is still running on 2 other, and in case another one fails, there's still one running. And by the time that one is still running, these 2 availability zones can be back up in order for the application to be restored on the 3 of them. So what are so unique about it? It's a unique physical location within an Azure region. Each availability zone is made of 1 or more data centers. So for example, within UK South, we can have, for example, different data centers there, and those data centers could have different availability zone. Something that we need to note that not all regions have availability zones, so we need to be very careful of where we chose our availability zones in case we have something like a regulatory compliance. We need to make sure that we actually comply with those regulatory compliance. Regions who support availability zones, as we said before, has at least 3 zones to ensure resiliency. There are physical separation between the availability zones. So for example, the first availability zone is in one building, for example, the second one different building, and the third one in a third building. And finally, every availability set has its default domain and update domain. So a default domain and update domain are actually utilized in case something goes down. They can actually update the domain and the traffic is being routed somewhere else. If you have any questions about fault domain and update domain, please ask in the comments down below, but we're going to be covering it in a later video. So basically, these are the points that I wanted to discuss within this first part of Azure explorations. Now what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be going through the Azure portal, exploring it a bit, see how the interface look, see how we can create a default service from there, and see how the different selection can be from there. And from different parts of different services, we can check the different configuration that they provide. And since this is the first part, we're not going to be delving into more deep than this, but within this upcoming series, we're going to be actually exploring all of these different services and different functionality that Azure provide, and we're going to actually build these services as we go. Now let's jump into the demo. So in order for you to get started with Azure, you need to go to portal.azure.com, create an account. It's a very simple account to create and it's very fast. Once you register, you're going to get $200 of free credit to utilize within the first month, and you need to input your credit card. You're not going to get charged. It's just a way for them to identify your identity. But for example, after you finish the 200 credits that you get, $100 credit that you get, you might get charged on the services that you utilize. There's some free services. There are, I think, more than 100 free services that you can actually utilize forever. You don't have to pay anything for them. But there are, of course, other services that will actually need to pay for them. So, as we discussed first, let's go a simple route and let's try to create any resource on Azure. And once we create that resource, we're going to see the different configuration that we have discussed in our video. So for this example in specific, we're going to create a simple web app and we're going to see the different configuration that we see. So as we can see here, we have a search bar. And basically this is one of the best things if you want to see, for example, what service to provide. So if I want to create a website, let's say web, and as you can see here, I have something called app services, and app services are basically a service that Azure provide in order for us to host our web application. So let's click on that, and we can see here that I don't have any app services available. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna click on this button, create app service, and it takes me to like a form where I need to fill in order for me to fill all of the right information. So the first thing is gonna ask me, what subscription do I want? Within Azure, you can have different multiple subscriptions if you want to create any service on Azure. So because I'm using pay as you go, I'm gonna choose the pay as you go. Second, it's gonna ask me for a resource group, and a resource group basically is like a container. And if we think, we're gonna be discussing what's a resource group in a future video, but for now let's understand a resource group as a container. So let's say I have this web app, it's called my to-do list app, and this app is gonna contain a web application, it's gonna contain a database, it's gonna contain, for example, my SSL certificate to make the domain secure, and it's gonna contain, for example, some analytics and logging tool. So I want to put all of these in a single bucket. So for example, if I go to any place, let's say I have different applications. I have one for my to-do list, for example, application. I have another one, for example, for an e-commerce website that I have. So if I want to do this separation, that I want to know, for example, all of my to-do lists are in one bucket and all of my e-commerce in different bucket, the way that I do this separation is something called resource group. And right now we're going to create, for example, my to-do resource group. So because I don't have anything right now, I can click on create a new, and it's asking me to input a name. I'm just going to call it to-do resource RG, which is basically, this is the standard. If you're going to put a resource group, you put the name and then you put RG, which is stand for resource group. And after that we click on OK, and now I have a new resource group for my application. And then I need to give my application a name. So by default, when you create an application or a web app on Azure, it automatically provides a domain, and within that it will automatically provide a domain that's built into Azure, which we can actually utilize. So for now, because I'm gonna create a to-do application, I'm gonna call it to-do, for example, demo-1, for example. And as you can see here, I got the green tick, so it's available. If, for example, I just want to call it to-do, I'm sure there's hundreds different one. Actually, there should be only one. There's another application called to-do which I cannot utilize. So if I put it back demo-1, it should automatically be enabled. So the second thing here is the publishing type. So do I want to publish my code to the Azure app through, I want to upload my source code, or I want to utilize Docker container? Currently, we're not gonna do any deployment. We're just gonna go through these steps in order for us to understand the different availability and different services that Azure provides. So for now, I'm just gonna keep it as code. And then it's gonna ask me for the runtime stack. It's basically, as we said before, Azure support different languages. So if I click on the drop-down list here, we can see all of these languages that Azure support. And currently, we're gonna be basically just putting it as a .NET 5 application. And then as soon as I chose .NET 5, you saw that the regions and all of these Windows plan automatically being populated, because as we said, not all of these services are available everywhere within every single region. Usually .NET is basically a is available across different regions and across geographies. But for example, let's say .NET 6 is not really available everywhere. There's certain aspects where it's available. But for now, let's stick with .NET 5. So once we have chose this runtime stack, we're going to choose an operating system because, as you know, .NET is compatible with Linux and macOS, and we have the ability to host it on a Windows or Linux machine. We're going to be utilizing Linux. And as you saw here, once we clicked on Linux, those start to load in order for us to see if they are actually available within this region or not, because if they're not, different regions will be populated. And as we can see here, we have all of these regions which are actually available. For now, I'm just going to use UK South. So once we have done that, we got the app service plan. So the app service plan is basically what type of, it's going to be the plan that my servers, the dedicated servers for me, they're going to be built on. So by default here, Azure decided that for this application, I can actually change it, but this is the default that Azure gave me. It's going to be an SKU and size of V2, P1 V2, and it's going to be basically, it has 3.5 gigabytes of RAM, and it has going to be 210 ACU. Which is going to be computing unit, Azure Compute Unit. We're going to be discussing what these mean in future videos, but for now, which is basically Azure has allocated a server with a certain requirements on them. I can actually change size, and here you can see actually the power of the cloud. So for example, let's say I want this server to be only for development. I can choose dev, and I can choose only 1 gigabyte of RAM with 60 compute minutes, which can actually be for free. It's not going to cost me anything to deploy it on this server, for example. Or for example, I want it to be production ready application where I want the maximum server. So I can have it, for example, 32 gigabytes of RAM with 8 CPU cores. And as you can see here, like the configuration that I'm choosing, if I want to do this configuration locally, if I want to have my own servers, for example, my own data center locally, this is gonna cost a lot of money, all of this hardware. If I want to manage all of these RAMs, make sure they are fully backed up, make sure that the hard disk that they are going to be supporting are fully available. If there, for example, if there's any failure within those hardware, I need to automatically manage them. But here, for example, it's a simple selection, as if like I'm doing an e-commerce, like what do I want to do? I can just directly select. And this is a very, very, very powerful feature, because basically it allows us to have much more control over the resources that we want to give our application. So let's say our application started with, like, for example, 1,000 customers. We don't really need all of these resources, but let's say our application took off and all of a sudden it jumped from 1,000 to 1 million customers. If we're going to do those upgrade manually, or if we're on any provider which is not built on the cloud, that manual process is going to cause a lot of downtime for us and for our customers, and it's not going to be a really good user experience. But with the cloud, it's going to be a completely different, because basically, let's say I choose this one, the 210, and with 3.5 gigabits of memory, let's say all of a sudden that I have 1 million users coming in, all I need to do is scale up, and the scaling up can happen within a few seconds. So I can directly scale up from P1 V2 to a P3 V3 in like 4 or 5 seconds. And within these 4 or 5 seconds, the application will automatically be able to handle 10 times the amount of traffic or 50 times the amount of traffic, all based on the different configuration that I have automatically gave it. As well, if I choose different services, we can see that there's a lot of different features that are included. So if I see here the included feature, we can see that the selection that I have support custom domains and SSL, because here, as we said, that Azure will provide its own domain and then automatically scale up. So this is really important. So let's say we expecting our application, once it reached, for example, 1,000 users, I want to automatically initiate a new server, and that server will automatically handle the new traffic. And that way we are allocating the traffic on different servers, and we have some kind of a load balancing in order for us to do that. So basically, within this selection here, I will be able to have this auto scale up available to 20 servers simultaneously. Staging slots, it means that, for example, when I'm doing any development, as we know, we have development environment, we have a QA, we have a pre-production, we have production, and then sometimes we have, for example, dedicated servers for A/B testing, and all of these different scenarios. So staging slots mean here that we can actually have different slots, and within those servers, in order for us to deploy our application to them and actually utilize them directly there, right there and there. Daily backups. So Azure provides us with daily backups of our application, so it will back up our source code and our configuration 50 times a day. As well, it will provide us with a traffic manager. This is the point that we have discussed in order for us to have availability. So in case one of our, if we deploy it, for example, in a certain data center and that data center went down, it will automatically route the traffic to a different instances and will automatically manage all of these different traffic to a different data center. So our users will not know that the application has went down, but it will also give us the ability to fix any issues, for example, or Azure fixed any issues with those data centers. So it will, so once that issue has been resolved, the traffic will go back into the normal process that it goes to. As well, we can see here that we have dedicated memory. We have 250 gigabits of SSD storage. As well, we have Azure Compute Unit, which is basically a dedicated CPU that we can actually utilize. So we can see it's a very, very powerful basically selection list that we currently have. And lastly, we have isolated. Isolated is like enterprise ready environment, where basically we have isolated environments, and we can see the prices here just are crazy. It can go up to $1,109 a month. This is an estimate, and can go way more. And as we can see, the different features are different than the one within a normal production or a different test. So for now, for our purposes, let's just choose the free tier, and we click on apply. And once we have done that, we're gonna go into the next, which is gonna be deployment. So here we're gonna say continuous deployment, because that's actually so we can have everything ready. We're not gonna choose the free tier because we're not gonna really publish it. Let's choose production, and we choose this one, apply. And now let's choose different one. So here it's gonna ask me if do I wanna enable continuous deployment. So if I have, for example, a CI/CD pipeline, and I want to integrate that CI/CD pipeline with this web app that I'm creating, I need to say enabled, but for now I'm not, so I'm going to leave it as disabled. Monitoring, out of the box, Azure will provide us with something called Application Insight. And basically Application Insight is like a library that's attached to our application, which monitors the performance of our application and will actually provide us with any errors that our application might be having. And it actually gives us in-depth detail, so we can actually understand where everything is going wrong, and it will allow us to fix it and fix those bugs way faster. And then tags. Tags are mostly used for like payments or for tracking the cost. So if we create this and we can, for example, give it a tag as to do. So once we are checking the cost of at the end of the month and we see the resources, we can see it has the to do tag attached to it, so we know, okay, this is part of the to do application. So basically it's for just for costing. And lastly, the review and create. So then the review and create, it just basically give us like a full summary of what we have chosen. And if we click on the create button, all of these resources will be automatically created for us, and we can actually start utilizing the app service. So basically, this is a quick demo of the Azure portal and the different stuff that we have discussed during our video. Please ask your question in the comments down below. And this is going to be the first part. The next part, we're going to be delving more deep into actually building application and actually deploying them to Azure and see how we can configure different services. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like this video. Have a good day.